Welcome to the next Expert Showcase episode or episode of Expert Showcase, whatever you happen to say. Today our guest is Kemi Egan, and she's going to talk to you about how to go from being homeless to being a millionaire and how you can make money with real estate. And welcome to the show, Kemi. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
Awesome. I'm honored to have Kemi on, not only because she's going to talk to you all about how to go from homeless to being a real estate millionaire and how to do all this stuff in real estate, but she's coming to us live from London. And as we were talking about in the prep show, I mean, we finally got London covered. We've had Spain and Australia and New Zealand and India and Canada and all across the United States. We finally got London covered, so you folks get a double whammy. You got an awesome guest, and she's live from London today. Thank you again for being on, Kemi.
Hey, no worries. Thank you so much for having me. It makes a change. It's actually sunny here in London, so it's obviously your special talent.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, I've known some people in London. I've known some people who've lived there, and I guess, rain is kind of the norm there, and the sun, I guess it's kind of the joke, the sun comes out once a year or something like that. I don't know if that's true, but that's what people I know in London have told me.
Pretty much.
I thought they were just telling me that so I'd stay away, but that's but that's besides the point. So, Kemi, in our first segment, we always like to talk about the hero's journey of our guests. The journey our guest went through, whether it was that they went all the way down to rock bottom and maybe actually were homeless, or they just experienced some major issue in their life that was the turning point. And, they might have had success before, then they went down, they hit this point where things changed and got very negative, and it's when they themselves changed, and it's what put them on the path to the success they are today. So tell us a little bit about your hero's journey. Where'd you start? Where'd you come from? And let's talk about that for a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, I think I follow the traditional kind of Lion King story. So I grew up in a pretty broke family, mixed race, so it came with all the drama that comes with. My dad wasn't a very nice guy, so he kind of came and went as was convenient for him. And there was a lot of, domestic violence around, there was a lot of poverty, there was a lot of addiction. And I just remember looking around at some point and thinking, this isn't what it's going to be like for me. I'm going to change this, just watch me. But the only thing I knew to do was the traditional advice, which was go to college, study some more, read some more books, get some degree in something useless and go from there. That's what I did. So I started on that path, and there was one particular day where a teacher said to me, "What do you want to be, Kemi?" So I said, "I want to be a physical therapist. I want to specialise in sports, and that's my dream." And she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Kemi, if you're lucky, you'll be a cleaner or a criminal." And that was the aspiration that was given to me by my teacher.
Wow, a cleaner or a criminal. I must say, it's interesting to hear you talk and hear you describe things. Have you ever seen the movie A Knight's Tale?
I have.
The minute you started talking about the poverty and all of what was going on, all I could think of was Cheapside and the village that, and the line from that movie about changing your stars and the fact that, and it's kind of ironic for those of you who have never seen it. Sometimes it's played off as a comedy. In fact, it's kind of ironic when all the jousting and everything happens and they've got like 80s music playing and you're watching a medieval thing to We Will Rock You, and kind of your brain just doesn't match the two. But it's it's interesting. It was just kind of something that triggered. But so back to the important thing, which is you. So your teacher looked at you and said you're either going to be a cleaner or a criminal. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, cleaner could be a criminal as well, but that's a topic for a whole nother, and I'm not talking cleaner with the broom and the dust mop, that's a topic for a whole nother show. And if there's any cleaners watching, don't come after me because I outed you. But anyway, that's besides the point. So what did that make you feel? And I hate to sound like a psychologist, but what did that make you feel when the teacher looked at you and said you're going to be a cleaner or a criminal?
Fortunately, I'm pretty stubborn. So there was a few hours where, I was broken. It was my big goal. Like, that's what I thought was going to lead my family and myself out of this situation. We were going to travel and I was going to work with teams, and that was going to be the saviour. And then someone that I trusted said to me, you can't have that. But really quickly, it gave me a reason to, metaphorically show them a few fingers and decide that I was going to do it anyway. So fortunately for me, it didn't knock me for very long, but it provided an impetus to actually go on further and do it to prove them wrong, if nothing else.
That is awesome. So, it's so interesting to hear you say that. And, it's, bullying. I was bullied as a kid, and I know a lot of people who were, and, people gone through a lot of challenges, and people always ask me, they say, well, what's the difference between somebody who gets bullied and comes back and is a success, and one who lets it get to them? And it's, I tell them first, it's how they're wired. It's in their DNA. And then it's what they do with that. So obviously you're wired to basically say, here it is. I really don't care. I'm going to, I'm now angry. So now I'm going to prove you wrong. And you went out and did it. I mean, is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you say, you can either use it to break you, or you can use it to help you move forward. And a lot of that comes from within. And a lot of it as well, I think, they say you're either, you are led by the carrot or you're beaten by the stick or something. You're a pleasure or a pain person. Yeah. And for me, I will always do anything to avoid the pain rather than chase the pleasure. So if she'd have said to me, you probably can do it and you probably will earn okay and probably this, it might not have had the same effect. But because she said you can't, wow, that was me done.
And it's so amazing to hear that, because so often now in today's society, we're so politically correct, and we don't want to put people down, and we don't want to give them anything negative because we're afraid it's gonna break them. And yes, it does damage, and it does harm. I've personally been exposed to that, so I'm not saying it's the right way for everybody to go, but you have to look at it from a standpoint of, there are some people who, no matter how much you build them up, it doesn't help. They just kind of sit and be like, okay, this is great, and they never achieve their full potential. It's kind of interesting because there was real quick, there was a sports story recently talking about how a coach on an American football team. I know it's not real football, but we call it football. It's and it's funny because I'm outside Philadelphia, so we finally have a soccer team, and I'm finally now exposed to over the last, I don't know, I think it's about 8 years now, the fervor that is around real football, and it's kind of amazing when you compare it to what we've got as American football. But anyway, the short version is the coach was breaking his players down, but never building them up. And yeah, all of his players now are saying the worst time they had was playing for him. And down the line, it's like, look, break us down all you want, but then build us back up.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a house. Sometimes you have to tear the house down to build it back up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, don't get me wrong, I have since worked with a lot of mentors, a lot of coaches, some life coaches, a couple of shrinks, all to do their rebuilding. And, they're all very open and saying, look, we're all a little bit messed up, let's be honest. We all come to things with our baggage. We've all had experiences that affect our view of the world, and not always do we process things well. So, let's strip it back a little bit and then let's build up further. But you have to be careful, like you say, how you do that. You have to give people the tools to go forward with, not just beat them down and leave them to figure it out for themselves.
And that's a great point for everybody to take from this story, is if you're a coach, or if you in any way help people, if you're going to break them down, and if that's your last resort, give them the tools to succeed. It's like we've got a show here on American TV around hoarding, and when people, live in terrible conditions. And if you look at all the shows, their goal is to not only fix the current situation and break the people down to get them to realize they need to be better, but then give them the tools, if they want to accept it, to be better and to build things up. So that's a great point. I mean, if you're just tuning in, that's the point you definitely want to get out of this piece of Kemi's story so far. So Kemi, you talked about being in school, and you talked about that was kind of what started you down a path that you were going to show people and do something different. Was that grade school, high school, college, which university? I'll get the terminology right. So yes, we in America don't talk right. We say niche instead of niche. We say college instead of university. We'll eventually get on board with the rest of the world. So, but anyway, where in your school was it, and what happened immediately after that?
So that would have been, I think, your middle school.
Okay,
so I was
it was when you were younger.
12 or 13, I think. Yeah, so immediately after I kind of carried on and everything then, if I'm honest, I didn't really know what a physical therapist was or what it did. I just knew that I enjoyed sports and that's what I wanted to do. So that's where I set my goals. That's what I've made all my decisions based on going forward. And I was ridiculously fortunate in that actually I'm fairly intellectual. Studying comes to me quite naturally because my slightly rebellious nature means I don't study that well at school. So I got into college and began kind of studying for this. And at 21, I lost my best friend to domestic violence.
Oh.
She hadn't chosen to go to college. She had taken another path. She was doing some vocational things, but eventually stayed in our hometown and in that environment. And we lost her. And it was just another kick, but it was another moment to say, this has to change. This cycle, this constant loss and pain, this has to stop and someone has to break the mold. And that reaffirmed my decision to make things better for myself and my family, but it also meant that my big goal was then born, and my goal has been to build this foundation to support victims of domestic violence or domestic abuse of any kind, to help bring in training, to bring in skills, to bring in education, financial awareness, a safe place where you actually learn tools that you can go on and improve your life. So although things going forward from there didn't quite go smoothly, again, it gave me another rod of steel and another bit of backbone so that whatever happened, I wouldn't quit, because now it was bigger than me. It was bigger than what I wanted or what my mum wanted or what car I needed. It was about other people and stopping this again.
Yeah, and that's so important to have a why that's bigger than you. I mean, some people are challenged to just figure out their why, period. But to have a why bigger than you is so critical to being a success nowadays. So you were in school, you told somebody you wanted to be a physical therapist, they shot the idea down, which gave you even more drive to go do it. It sounds like you went to university and became a physical therapist, and then at 21 lost a close friend to domestic violence, which gave you a bigger push to not only do what you were doing for a living, but to create something larger than yourself. Is that kind of where we're at this point in the story?
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm trying to figure out now also how it ties into what we're going to talk about in segment 2, which is going from homeless to being, a real estate millionaire. So you had this loss, you decided to create this foundation. Did everything go smoothly from there, or was there another challenge that kind of, is this like a roller coaster for you, where there was another challenge that took you down?
Yeah, so I had in my mind to build this foundation, but I hadn't done it or started it. I just knew that was happening. And off I went to be a physical therapist, and I was really fortunate in that it came very naturally to me. I was pretty good at it. So I was quickly working with some of the top sports teams. I was traveling internationally, and I decided that one of my ways to give back was going to be to open this sports clinic or a private health clinic. Because in the UK we've got the NHS, which means that healthcare is free. But it also means there's a 6 or 9 month waiting list. You can't get treatment. If you pay for it, it's very expensive. So I wanted to build kind of a middle ground. And I opened this fantastic clinic. It was awesome. It had, 5 or 6 treatment rooms. I had all singing, all dancing. It was beautiful. And what I realised was I was terrible at business. Beyond hopeless. I had no idea. So I'd come out of, I think, what a lot of us service professionals do. We know that we're good at our thing, and we try and make a business out of it, and I was terrible. Simultaneously, we're in the middle of, one of the biggest worldwide economic recessions there's ever been, and a lot of our clients came from, like insurance referrals. So if you have a car crash, they'll refer you, or an accident at work. Those insurance companies suddenly went bankrupt. And with it went, 80% of our caseload and tens of thousands of pounds that they owed us in treatment. So really quickly, we were on this high from it going really well, and just it nosedived overnight. And I didn't have the skills, the knowledge, the strategic ability to turn this business around. I did all the traditional things that you do, I started discounting left, right and centre, free sessions, do this, do that, and clearly that was not going to save the business. But as a director, I was up to my ears in personal loans, director guarantees, debts, whatever, to get this place up and running. And I just couldn't afford to cover those bills, keep the business running and my home. And to shut the business would have cost tens of thousands of dollars. I literally couldn't afford for the business to go under. So my only option was to move into one of the rooms of this health clinic, which is how I ended up homeless, living in what was, I think, 60 square feet, no windows, no fresh air. It was marvelous.
Yeah, it's it's interesting because there's somebody who, I'm not sure if you've heard of. His name is Les Brown. He's been on the motivational speaking circuit for 40 years, and he tells a very similar story where he was running this multi-million-dollar company. What his employees didn't know was after they went home at night, he'd come back in because he lost his house. And it's kind of ironic when you hear motivational speaker and somebody who's supposed to be really good at something, having to move into the building he's renting for the business. So, but I only tell that story to show that whether it's somebody like Kemi or whether it's somebody who has been doing it for 40 years, everybody has that. It could happen to anybody, I guess, is the best way to put it. And I commend you for making the decision to say, I'm going to forego my house and keeping the business open, because while I understand that it would have cost more to shut the business down, let's face it, being in I'll say similar industries in certain ways, people, just like when you talk about probably real estate, people can always quote unquote find the money, so to speak. And I know that there is a blood from a stone thing that goes on, but regardless of whether you believe and put forward the fact that you had no choice and you had to keep the business open and get rid of the house, I believe you actually did, and you made an incredible choice to keep the business going instead of just leaving it and walking away and trying to do something else. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, and also, I could have kept the house and shut the business, but that was my income and all I was qualified to do. So actually, I would have left my house pretty soon afterwards anyway. So it was probably a strategic decision.
Yeah. But the key there, and I guess the key there, I want everybody to realize is it's all about making decisions. And even when we don't feel we have a decision, even in our darkest times, there still are decisions you can make at that point. And it might not feel like it. You might feel like you have no decisions, but everything you do ends up being a decision in some way, shape, or form. So you're at this point, you've got the business, you've kept the business and are living in 60 square feet, and you're at the point where you've gotten rid of your house. Without giving too much away of what we're going to go into in segment 2, what happens next?
There was probably a 3-month period that I was just feeling sorry for myself, drinking a lot, eating a lot of rubbish, having the kind of woe is me sort of time, why me, everything went against me, some more. And that went on for 3 or 4 months. And that was just a day, to be honest, a day that I guess it was rock bottom. I went across to the community centre to have the daily showers I did. I came back, I was sat there eating some garbage on the floor. I just thought, this is insane. There are people somewhere making money right now. There is someone that's successful right now. So it isn't the recession, it isn't bad luck, it isn't whatever. They just know stuff that I don't. And I decided to figure out what it is they knew and get on and do it.
Awesome. So you took personal responsibility for your life and for your situation instead of saying, woe is me. Is that a fair way to sum it up?
Yeah, and it's the scariest thing I've ever done. And someone said to me once, actually not long after, as soon as you take responsibility for everything, it's the scariest time in your life, but the most empowering. And it is. It's 100% terrifying to look at your life and go, I created every single part of this in one way or another. By making decisions or by failing to make them, whatever it was, I made this. This is all on me. And it's the scariest thing, but it is so empowering because from then on you can change it, right? If it's your choice, figure it out and change it.
Yes, exactly. Before I do a quick wrap up of segment one and kind of prepare us all for segment two, you've made that choice, and then give us a quick, like I said, without giving away too much what we're going to talk about in segment two, but you've made that choice. What are the next couple of steps that you did that I'll say led you to start going from literally homeless to a real estate millionaire? You've made the decision. I'm taking responsibility. What's the next thing you did?
The next thing I did was I started Googling online, which I'm really fortunate the path has taken me because it could have gone horribly wrong, how to make money, basically. And fortunately, some good books came up and not some other sites.
I was going to say, at least you didn't Google how do beautiful women make money, because you would have really ended up in a different setup. You'd been way off on the websites that you got up. So at least that didn't sound good, but you know what I mean. You would have come, open mouth, insert foot. I'm trying to, I'm getting the shovels right behind me. I'll dig the hole deeper later on. But so you went out and Googled how to make money, and you came across some good information. Is that where you were going before I stuck my foot in my own mouth?
Exactly. I just, I realised that there's a whole world out there about wealth creation, about personal development, about running a business, about real estate, about internet marketing, just stuff that I didn't even know existed. And the first thing I did was just throw myself into this information. So I got a library card because obviously reading library books is free, and I started reading as much as I could, listened to audio programs, I went to free seminars. I just threw myself into getting educated and to learning as much as I could about all of this.
Awesome. So one of the things I want everybody to realize, and I'm going to wrap up segment one, and we'll take a quick break and move into segment two, is not only did Kemi make a decision to change, but she spent a lot of her time, which is very valuable, to collect a lot of information and to figure out the right way of doing things. And that's what I want you as a viewer to hone in on at this point, because we're going to get into to part two, which is how to go from being homeless to being a millionaire, and how to make money in the real estate market. And what you have to understand is, yes, there are millions of people out there, probably millions, at least thousands of people out there trying to give you all of this information. And if you Google that particular topic, you're probably going to find a lot of people. The difference between Kemi and all those other people is she's been through it. She's learned through the school of hard knocks, and she's cutting down the time it would take you to find all the information on your own. Is that a fair assessment? Is that a fair thing to say, Kemi?
Yeah, exactly. It's such a really nice thing for you to say. I think that's all I ever try and do, and I think unlike some other people, I'm still doing it. I still invest in real estate. I still every day do this, which is means I can talk about it with a lot of authenticity and a lot of honesty.
Exactly, and I think that's a great place to leave segment one. So in segment one, we've been hearing about Kemi's hero's journey. We've gone a little bit over what we talked about, but that's okay. It's been great information. The good news for all of you is that if you want to hear how somebody had challenges in school, had a very challenging upbringing, and has gone on to be a success, and hear about Kemi's hero's journey, just watch the episode. It's a great episode. If you're just joining us now, stick around. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with the meat of our episode today, which is our experts focus. And Kemi's going to talk about the things related to making money in real estate, and how to go from being homeless to being a real estate millionaire. So stick around, and we'll be right back. And we're back with Kemi Egan, and wow, what a hero's journey. For those of you who haven't watched it, if you're just watching segment two, go back and watch segment one. The links are below or in the playlist. They're all over the place. Go back and watch segment one. You're not going to regret it. You're going to be happy you did, and you're going to hear what gives Kemi the reason and the authority to sit here in front of you and help you understand how to go from being homeless to being a real estate millionaire. So now let's jump right into it, Kemi. When we were prepping for the show, we talked a little bit about this. Your topic for today is homeless to real estate millionaire, how to make money and create wealth in real estate. Before we get to the 3 keys of success and before we dive deep in, give us a 30-second or so kind of overview, a brief summary, if you will, of what we're going to touch on in this piece of Expert Showcase today.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about what you can offer and what you can bring to a partnership if you don't feel like you have anything to bring. How, no matter what situation you're in, you have a way of moving yourself forward in terms of building your wealth or building income from real estate. And also the value of partnerships, and don't do this alone. Just don't do it.
Yeah, oh, exactly. Well, I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this. It's funny because one of the things that our viewers should understand by now is that when I get really, really super excited, I just can't talk. It's kind of like my brain shuts off. So if I stumble, I'm just super excited to go through this with you today, learn from you, and talk all about this. So we're going to talk about partnerships and joint ventures, building your network before you need it, and leveraging your time. So let's get right into it. Tell us about partnerships and joint ventures and how they fit into this whole thing.
You know, partnerships and joint ventures, they're just massive. I think as we grow up and as we're taught, especially in schools, you know, it's do things by yourself, don't cheat, don't get other people to do it for you or with you. And as entrepreneurs, I'm sure you know, we're a pretty stubborn bunch. We like to think that we can do it all, and there's some kind of pride in this. I did it from start to finish. And the reality is it's garbage. You can shorten your time to success, like we were talking about earlier, by getting people that have what you need and bringing them in whatever format that can be.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you know, a great example is Steve Jobs. You know, he could, it's funny if you believe all the stories about when he and Steve Wozniak built Apple, you know, they each had their own key successes. And I'm going to just, you know, for those of you watching, yes, I'm going to finally plug in my laptop because we really don't want to go dead on air today. So it's, there we go. Now I actually have power plugged in. We won't even cut that out. We just like to have a lot of fun. So anyway, there we go. We're charging. Boy, I'm glad I looked at that because it would have been really bad. All gone. But if you think back to the story, if you think about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, they each had this different set of skills they brought to the table. All Wozniak wanted to do was build the computer. He wanted to have fun. He was the geek. Steve was the business guy who looked at it and said, I know how we're going to make millions on this. So without them being together, Wozniak would have just had fun building computers. Steve would have had great business ideas, but he would have had great ideas how to build a business, but nothing to sell and nothing to build the business from. And we may never know either one of their names. I mean, is that similar to when you're talking about real estate and when people are looking for partnerships and joint ventures? Is that the similar mindset people should be in?
Yeah, really similar. I mean, you've got kind of different types. So you can have a long-term business partnership. So I've got my business partner, Laura. She's very analytical, very studious, loves number crunching and spreadsheets and contracts. You know, if I could lock her away for the rest of her life with a spreadsheet, she probably would never be happier. But there's also the smaller partnership. So obviously when I started, I had no cash, I had no experience, I didn't know very much. So I went out there and I found unwittingly, those are the people that I found. And I found joint venture partners to bring the money into deals. I found people that had investment opportunities but had no money, and I put them together and took a cut out of the middle. And I figured out really quickly that what I was good at was networking, was building relationships, was finding what people needed and how I could add value to them, and then either adding it myself or finding the people that could do that. You know, I didn't have the cash, so there was no amount of magicking that up, but I could do the other things.
Awesome. So would it be fair to say that one of the things that might scare people from doing partnerships and joint ventures is, say they have no cash. So they go out, they can see a property, they might even have the skills to rehab it if it's a rehab situation, but because they have no cash, they're afraid to approach somebody with cash because people with cash hold all the power. So the minute you go and you take a deal to somebody with money, is it safe to say that there might be a fear involved that you might actually lose the deal and might not get anything out of it because you don't have the money and they in the end you might be giving over some of your control? Is that a fair statement, or am I off base on that?
I think that's a massive fear that everybody holds, especially in the beginning. And I think part of it comes down to a scarcity mindset, especially if you don't have a lot at the time. You suddenly think that the whole world wants to take what you have, everyone's going to try and steal from you. the reality is this: some people will nick a deal from you if they can. You know, you can wrap it up in paperwork, you can get non-circumvent, non-disclosure agreements, non-this and non-that. But in honesty, if they want to take a deal from you, they're going to. It's not going to be worth your legal fees to get it back. However, the world is really small, and they'll get away with that once maybe, but they're not going to do it again because everyone will know. In actual fact, most people that have cash, they need to work that money due to inflation, cost of living. You know, they need that money making them money. They need to be getting interest on it. They need to be generating their wealth. So they need people that they can partner with that are honest, authentic, genuine, good at what they do, that they can put their money in. So they're looking to create long-term relationships often. You know, they want to test you out, see if you're good. If you are, they're going to open their bank balance and it's all yours. They don't want to nick a deal. You know, the chances are that's not how they've made their money, by stealing deals and stealing things. They're just good people that have maybe a few steps ahead of you, and now they're like, look, I don't want to traipse the streets looking for a deal, but you have it. So how about you bring me the money, you bring me the deal, I'll bring the money, and let's get this done.
Exactly. It's funny because I was just watching a show we have here in the States called The Prophet. It's a gentleman, Marcus Leonis. If you Google, I think it's Leonis, but if you Google the show The Prophet on CNBC, you find, and he's kind of like an individual shark from the show Shark Tank. So he goes in and invests in businesses, but also helps them. He said something amazing last night. He was like, you might be wondering why I'm doing this deal. Well, if I took $50,000 and I put it into this over the course of a year, I'll make it 10% on my money. If I took that same 50 grand and put it into the bank, I'd make about 2%. And it was so funny because you're sitting there and going, you know, you just want to smack yourself in the face and go, okay, that's, you know, now it makes sense why people with money will invest in other things even when it doesn't overly make sense. But it was kind of one of the clearest things I've ever seen a shark, or even somebody like a shark, come out and explain, and he had to do it because the deal he was doing he walked away from in the past, and it was a very contentious breakup and the whole 9 yards. So, but it was, you know, it was really interesting. So one of the points that I took away, and that I want you as a viewer to take away, is if you have the fear when you start creating this partnership and joint venture, realize that if you have a skill that is worth something, meaning a networking skill, or if you can find the right deal, or if you're great at doing the rehab, or if you're great at some piece of it, if you find an investor or a joint venture or a partner that is not great at that and doesn't want to have anything to do with that, and you can prove you're trustworthy to them and they're trustworthy to you, then that's the type of joint venture and partnership you want to build. Is that a fair thing to say?
Absolutely, and there are so many smart ways to do it, because I see so many people giving up their power and starting from this position of weakness. You know, they won't have never networked before, they don't go and build relationships before, and they'll just run around and they'll bring this deal, and you know, they're desperately sweating to try and get this cash. I mean, as an example, literally yesterday afternoon I was sent a proposal through, and someone had clearly bashed this together in about 30 seconds. The font was all different, the size was all different, there were no tables, there was nothing. I couldn't even make sense of this thing. But the thing, I'd been recommended this person, so normally they wouldn't get past my inbox. But I was like, look, can you just make this something I can read, bring it back to me, and we'll have a chat. I don't have time to call you tonight, but I'll call you in the morning. And she said, oh, you know, I'll be up till 11 o'clock tonight, can you call me tonight? So I go, you might be up to 11, but I'm not. Let's chat tomorrow. By the time I got into the office, so I went to play tennis this morning, so by the time I got into the office, I had something like 2 emails, 2 voicemails, and a text saying, when are you going to call me? It just thinks of desperation. So automatically, you know, your respect for us is a little bit lower. You're suddenly thinking, how professional actually are you? Is this how you go about things? But you can maintain your position of strength by approaching people in the right way, by having the relationships, by saying, look, this is what I've got. I think it's a really great deal. You know, I don't think we're going to have any problems funding it, but I wanted to come to you first. Can you know, take 10 minutes, cast your eye over it. If you're interested, come back to me. And then if you want to, drop them an email in 3 or 4 days and say, you know, did you have a chance to have a look at this? What did you think? Or one of my favourite strategies to raise finance is to sell through, not to. So if you know someone has cash and you kind of think you're gonna get it, it's a good deal. Instead of saying to them, look, you know, do you want to invest in this? You say to them, listen, I've got this really great investment. We're getting a 50% return on, you know, our investment over 7 months. Do you know anyone that would be interested in that you could refer me on to? And instantly, it's non-aggressive, it's non-intimidating. So if they're not interested, they don't have to say yes, and you don't get the knockback, if they are, the first thing they'll do is stick their hand up and go, me thanks.
Yep.
And if they can't for any reason, they'll recommend you all their rich friends.
And I think the key there, before we move into the second point, the key there is doing it in true and authentic style. I have a very similar thing. It's, one of the things I do is I'm an author, and I had that on my LinkedIn profile for a while. I had a publisher reach out to me and say, do you have any more work? We want to publish your next book. I said, here you go. They said, we love it. We want to sign you. And I remembered I knew another publisher. His name's David Hancock from Morgan James Publishing. I remembered I met him at an event I was speaking at, about 6 months before. And I sent him an email. I wasn't even looking for him to sign me. In the back of my head, I said, look, I know that I've done this before, and I've had people yell at me because I didn't give them the chance or the opportunity. But what I really wanted from him, because I looked at him as a very high-level publisher, and I went, wasn't really in the market at that point. And I wanted him to give me advice on the contract and everything else. And I said, and by the way, if you really want to look at it, I'll send you what I got. I just didn't want to feel guilty later on and have you come back and hear about it and say that, you didn't even get a chance to see. And when I wrote that email, when I talk about being true and authentic, when I wrote the email, my thought was, I need help on the contract to make sure this other publisher isn't screwing me. That's the input I want from David, and I'd like him. Yeah, and okay, yeah, the book is nice if he's got any feedback on it. But until he said, I'd love to read it, and let me see if it's, I'll send it to one of my book buyers, and we'll see if we can do one of my agents, and we'll see if we can do a deal. That was the first time I even thought about him signing me. So the reason I bring that whole story up is it goes right to your point. When you're approaching people for a joint venture or a partnership, if you really want their money and that's the thought that's in your head, I don't care what you say, it's going to come down on the keyboard. You're going to type something that's going to give it away. So you have to go into all those things in the true and authentic style of, you would love to have their money, but you're really looking for them to say, hey, does anybody in your network, do you know anybody who might be comfortable, and come at it with true and authenticity, and you'll get a lot further. Fair thing to say, Kemi?
Yeah, and I love that, Chris. That's so important. And I don't know if you've noticed as well, I mean, clearly you have because you're talking about it, but over the last few years, there's been this huge shift in people want to deal with real people. It's about authenticity. It's, can you look someone in the eye and genuinely mean what you're saying? Are you coming from a place that you care and you want to help and you want to do the right thing? Because the days of being a shiny suited, shiny shoed, scam artist, I think are quickly fading, because partly we're all very sophisticated now. We're used to sales techniques. We're used to all the garbage marketing. So when people say to me, why would someone invest in me and not someone else? Well, there's two reasons. Firstly, you're the right person for them. Of course, there's a million other places you could put your money, but you're the right one. You'll attract the people you should be working with. The second thing is, there aren't a lot of people, especially in the financial industry, that can look someone in the eye and say, I genuinely think this is a good deal. And you as an investor, as a professional, as an authentic person, it's going to take them something you genuinely believe to be great. Whereas certain, financial advisors, certain other people are getting their commissions on you taking a deal, or getting this or getting that. It's not always with the best intention of that investor. So when you get to stand there and say, look, I genuinely think this is awesome. If you don't want to do it, that's cool. I think you're mental, but that's cool. I'll find it somewhere else. It's a really great place to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that really lends us to going into your second point of building your network before you need it. Because in the end, truth, authenticity, and a lot of that stuff is going to help you build your network before you need it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't even know this was a thing again when I started, but I began looking at investment properties, going out there doing these viewings, and then going to business meetings or networking meetings around business, real estate, all of that thing, and just talking to people, telling them what I was doing. I had no intention of anything because I wasn't really aware that joint ventures existed at the time. So I was just talking, sharing my journey, sharing what I was finding at the time. And I built a relationship with this guy over probably 2 or 3 months. We'd seen each other 2 or 3 times a month at these different events. And eventually I had a call from a realtor saying, Kemi, your offer's been accepted. And, I was putting in ridiculous offers. They should not have been accepted. But, they were investor offers. But one of these dropped in, and I didn't have a Scooby clue how I was going to pay for this. I had no idea. I was still homeless. I wasn't paying for anything. I certainly wasn't about to buy a house. But I went to this networking meeting and I said to him again, look, we've just had this offer accepted. It's a really great deal. Just chatting. And he said, okay, Ken, well, if you're happy to do the work and manage it, I'll pay for it. And that was my first investment. And it took me a while before I realised that this happened a few times, and what would happen is that I built relationships with people. I had these network of experienced people, some experience with money, some just experience in rehabilitating properties, some experienced in law, some experienced in raising finance. So actually when I needed something, it wasn't weird to pick up the phone and be like, do you know anyone that can help with this? Or I don't suppose you've got any experience with this. Because again, you're not giving up your strength, they're your friends, why wouldn't you call them for advice? And suddenly you've got a whole network of people just giving back to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've hit on another key point about building your network, is that in the end you're building your relationships, and really you're making friends. And it's something that if you go into it making friends before you need them, then it's kind of like what Gary Vaynerchuk talks about jab, 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 right hook, which is just keep giving people everything, and then eventually you're going to go for the sale. I mean, that's the way I interpret it. I know some people have told me I interpret it a little off, but hey, that's me. I'm a little off. What can I say? So, but the point is that if you do it truly and authentically, and are really there, not looking at what that person can give you going forward, but what, maybe what you can do for that person, or at least how to be a good friend. And I think the challenge becomes, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, the challenge becomes, we're told in business we have to have a plan, and you have to make every minute count, and you have to go and make every networking event count, and you have to be laser focused, and you have to go in and it's kind of like, you're doing a machine gun thing. And I was at a Brian Tracy event, this guy who did laser, but anyway, I just love SEO, so that's besides the point. But no, I mean, we're always told you have to be laser focused, and you have to know exactly what you're doing. You can't just be there kind of for fun. The problem is that if you know exactly what you're doing, then you're going after the person that's got the money, and you're trying to make them a friend, and they can tell. They see the look of desperation in your eyes. Is that what you did? I mean, just go out and try to make friends and just talk about what you were doing without a very clear intention of, I need these 14 people in the room to be part of my circle?
Yeah, for sure. I was so naive, and I think that helped me so much, because I couldn't be strategic or, try and slide my way around, because I wasn't smart enough to do it. What I did, I literally went out there to try and meet some people. I read that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I realised the 5 people I spent the most time with were broke, so I figured, well, let's go find some smart people that know more than I do. And that was all I went with. And I completely agree with you that all this business advice is, be laser focused, make every minute count. But for me, well, making friends is important, actually. I try and spend probably between 30 and maybe 50% of my time networking. But by networking, it's taking someone for dinner, or someone's coming into the country, and I'm like, hey, you know what, I've loved your stuff. Should we go for a drink? It's not for a purpose, but you are, again, opening your network and just finding if there's any way you can help them. And I know, again, a lot of the time people say to me, I don't have anything to give. Well, you do. I was homeless and broke and had no confidence and no self-esteem. But if someone said, have you read a good book recently? Yeah, I have actually. I've read this, try this. Or I was a physical therapist at the time, so, oh, my knee hurts. Do you have any reason why? Yeah, sure, let me look at that. We all have stuff to add and value to give. I think you just have to try and add as much value as you can. Definitely don't be laser focused. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know where you're going. It's impossible to get somewhere if you don't know where you're going. But we don't need to see 100 metres down the road. We just need to see the next traffic light. And all you're doing is going there.
Yeah, exactly. And one way you can be laser focused in building your network, but not be that salesman and that one that's completely laser focused on individual people, is if you know you're going to build a network in real estate, find out where people in that same type of network hang out, but then just go there without thinking that you're looking for an investor or a handyman or something else. It's kind of, you do the laser focus by, if you want to be in real estate, you're not going to go to a knitting club. Well, you might, if they're rich, if they're rich, and I shouldn't even classify because there are younger people knitting, but if they're rich old people, then yeah, go to a knitting club. But the whole point is you have to be at least, you have to do at least some little bit of planning. But where people take it overboard is they get into an environment and then all of a sudden it's like a radar. They've got this, it's like they look around, who's got the target on their, who's got the target on their back. And those are the people who struggle to create great networks, and the people who don't are the ones that go and just kindly talk about what they're doing. And when people are interested, they'll want to hear more. It's funny. It's from my book, The Secret Blueprint to More. I talk about getting married before you date. And some people, kind of jump the gun, especially in today's day of doing everything really quickly for fear of missing out on an opportunity. Remember that when you're gonna eventually marry someone, you date at least a little bit first. Might be only a couple of weeks, unless you're on Married at First Sight, which is a very bizarre television show we have in America. We are weird. I almost would love to have the system you guys have over in the UK, because I think you still only have like 3 channels or something like that. I mean, I might be downplaying it a little bit, but at least that's what that's what my friends in the UK tell me. Once again, if that's not true, I just think they don't want me to come. But that's besides the point. I know when I fly over there, I'll look you up, Kemi. We'll go out for a drink. So
do it, and I'll show you my 3 TV channels.
There we go. Oh, so let's go into leveraging your time, because I think it's a natural segue from not being completely laser focused, but still having to figure out how to leverage your time properly. So when doing all this, what advice would you give about leveraging your time?
Yeah, we're all so busy, and especially if you're still holding down a full-time job and you're trying to get into real estate or whatever it is you're moving into, it's so difficult to do it all. Look after your family, be where you need to be, do what you need to do. And if you're not careful, you just find yourself pulling your hair out and having a complete nervous breakdown because you feel like you're just treading water and you're not getting anywhere. And I remember having the same feelings and the same thoughts, and everyone's like, oh, outsource, get staff. I'm like, yeah, I live in that room. Do you think I can afford staff? But we now live in a world that is so easy to outsource. And what I learned is you can outsource the really small things, and this is what I talk about. So you might be looking for something, for example, we use a strategy called lease options. And if you're not familiar with real estate, it means you have an option to buy a property. In the meantime, you pay the mortgage and the bills and you rent it out to someone else. So what you really need is an owner that's looking to sell, but actually, selling isn't urgent. They would happily take a reliable income and no tenant as well. So often cases I'll find people that have negative equity. Now, the reality is they can't afford to sell that property for lower than the mortgage they've got on it, but also they can't afford to run it. So if someone said to them, well, actually, I'll run it for you for the next 5 years, and then in 5 years I'll buy it for the price of your mortgage, they're going to be happy, right?
Yeah.
And the brilliant thing about that technique is that you don't need any lending from the bank, you don't need a good credit score, you don't need any cash up front, really. What you do need is the time to find someone that's got a house for sale that might also be open for a house to rent. And that generally means scrolling through pages and pages of for sale sites, and then for rent sites, and trying to find the ones that match up. And who's got time for that? What we do is you can outsource it to a lower price economy. So you can get a virtual assistant, maybe from the Philippines, maybe from Thailand, maybe from anywhere in the world, that will work for a lot less than we would work for in our economies, but they still earn ridiculously well, for their country. And they'll do that work for you, and all of a sudden you've got a list of people that house for sale, for house for rent, and a contact number to get in touch with them. So when you have that spare hour and a half, you use it to do the really high value activity, which takes your skill, your experience and your knowledge, and you pick up the phone to this owner and say, look, we can figure this out for you, I can fix it for you. If you spend the hour and a half trying to find those properties, you're never going to get around to making the calls.
Yeah, and that is such an awesome piece of advice, and I'd like to further it in just one small way and say, for those of you for you watching who heard that and are like, well, if I do that, I'm taking jobs away from my local economy. I got a news flash for you. You're actually hurting your local economy by trying to find somebody locally who's going to work for minimum wage and scroll through a list of, especially here in the States, scroll through a list of names than you are by allowing that person who you would have employed for maybe minimum wage to find something better for themselves above the poverty line. Because as you probably know, Kemi, in America, minimum wage is actually, I think it's right now either at or below the poverty line, which is just insane if you ask me. But that's a whole other topic for another story. But the point is that you're helping somebody else who, like you said, in their country, maybe $3 an hour is actually, a king's ransom, so to speak. I mean, I remember back in the days of information technology when it first got outsourced to India, what people didn't realize is that the reason that people from India were coming over and getting paid American wages and living like 18 people to a house, so to speak, is because the amount of wages they were getting paid in American money made them kings back in India. And
Yeah.
while I get it, it was costing Americans jobs, it also led to a lot of innovation. So I think you're saying the same thing. It's like, look, outsource because you're actually helping the person in the outsourced country. Plus, you're in effect helping people locally because they're going to have to get, or at least I'm saying you're helping people locally because they're going to have to get a different job, a better job. And you know what? Maybe you can create that for them, right?
Exactly, and the reality is, the quicker you create wealth for yourself and your family, the more you're going to put into your local economy, the more money you're going to spend, the more people you're going to hire. I have to have some UK-based staff. I have to have my property managers on the ground, so I pay them well. They do great, but if I hadn't have outsourced in the first place, I wouldn't be here now, so I couldn't be spending that money. But you've got to get yourself there to be able to pay, the wages for your local economy.
Yeah, that is such a great point. You've got to get yourself there to be able to pay the wages for your local economy. I love it. Before I wrap up segment 2, and before I tell everybody what your website is and put it on the screen and tell them how to get in touch with you and everything, any closing thoughts on this piece of our show today?
Not at all, other than don't close your mind off to anything. If I've said go and leverage and you're thinking, I can't possibly, go on Elance, go on to Chris Ducker's site, Virtual Star Finder, go on to any, just, have a nosy. If you thought, oh, I can't go there, just keep an open mind, go and have a look at what's around, and it's an amazing world out there.
Awesome. And it's interesting because I just put up your website, freedompropertyacademy.com, and also at the bottom I've got a link to your 35-time #1 best-selling book, The Power of Real Estate Investing. Folks, that's that really weird Amazon.com link down there below. It'll also be in the show notes when we finally release this publicly to YouTube and to our website. But it's interesting, you were talking about going to explore virtual assistants and other things. This website you have, freedompropertyacademy.com, which is a free online membership site. It's got training videos, guides, and a forum. I'm guessing things like outsourcing and virtual assistant and how to use those effectively. I'm guessing that's some of what exists on the site. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. So it's being built out more and more, and it started off just as a supplement to the book. So we did loads of training videos and guides, but we're getting more questions on the forums. They're saying, "How do I do this?" So we're like, "This is exactly how I do it." I think there might be some my current outsourcers contact details on there, so they're good ones.
Awesome.
And everything to get you going.
Awesome. So we're going to take a real quick break. While we do, head over to freedompropertyacademy.com. See, it's on the screen. I'm not going to read it. I'm done. I used to read all these, and then I realized, it's on the screen. So if you're just listening, hello, look at the screen. Come back. The people who are vacuuming and doing other things, nobody would do that during our show, but okay, let's face it, we all do it. You have to multitask, so come back. Go to freedompropertyacademy.com, sign up for the free online membership. You're going to get a lot of great resources. And as Kemi said, she's adding more every day. And I know I can tell, and I hope you can too, from just listening to this piece of the Expert Showcase, or Experts Focus piece, that Kemi's got a lot of great information. She only shared, I would guess, 1/10 of 1% of her knowledge, if that, with us today, because we only had we went over again. But that's besides the point. We only had like a half hour. But we only had a short amount of time today to spend with Kemi. So go out there, get the rest of the information, sign up, and who knows, maybe, and you guys all take it from there. So we're going to take a quick break. We're then going to come back with a segment that we call Getting Known and Getting Found. And we're going to focus on visibility, credibility, and authority, and how Kemi has done that and has built that up. So go over freedompropertyacademy.com. Go, do it now, and then come back. Join us. Do it now, right now. Punch the seat, type keyboard, type on keyboard, and we'll be right back. And we're back on Expert Showcase. We've been having an awesome and an epic and an incredible conversation with our guest today, Kemi Egan. And Kemi, this has been awesome so far. The episode, for those of you who haven't watched the beginning, and I'm stumbling at this point, sit down, grab a cup of coffee. It's worth the time you're going to spend at the beginning, and watch the first 2 episodes of what we've done so far. In this episode, we're going to get a little more focused, and we're going to get a little more laser focused on getting known. And how, Kemi, you have built visibility, credibility, and become a leading authority in your niche. So let's start off with visibility. Give our viewers some insight into how you built visibility for yourself and for your business, specifically your real estate business, and the things you're doing now in real estate.
Yeah, so I went a little bit outside the box of real estate, and it's something that every other industry does, but ours doesn't. And I think there are a lot of industries like that. So I came from healthcare, and there's a way of doing things, but it's outdated. So I found myself time and again explaining my real estate strategy to potential investors, to people, just anyone that's asking me. I was just having the same conversation, and I'd made a specific choice about where I was investing and why and what sort of real estate and why. So I decided in the end to create a white paper, and I wrote this really long kind of document about why I was investing where I was, what I was doing, what the purpose was, what sort of returns I was getting, the type of population. It was really in depth, and from then on I was able to hand this out. And really quickly people started saying, oh, actually, I know someone that kind of writes about that, or, and it kind of spiraled, it became a thing. So I outsourced and popped on a website this white paper, and then I did one about another area of the country and another area of the country. And suddenly I became, the go-to person that knew about what real estate strategy was best for what area because of all these white papers. And I'd never even been to the places, but I'd done the research, I'd made the phone calls, so I knew, where you're getting the best yields, where you're getting the best returns, what the potential for growth was. And I wrote all of these up into these white papers. And it's not very fashionable now. I know we all like to do video for everything, or podcast for everything, or this for everything. But I like to give people different options for what they want. So the first thing I did was a white paper, and that built enormous traction, really. And then I found that some people don't like reading. So I did the same thing, video, face the camera. I think I did it on my mobile to start with. And they went up there essentially reading the same thing. And it was just different ways of getting myself to stand above the noise. There's a whole heap of noise out there, there's a whole heap of marketing. And coming from a background of not really knowing a lot on real estate, not being part of the old boys club, I had to make be something different. So I went out there with a bang to kind of clearly stand out and make myself an instant authority. So actually no one said to me, how many properties do you have, or how much is your income, because they took it for granted that I was established in this because of all this information that I produced out there.
I love it. I mean, and that's so, and it's funny because amazingly, in a very short, I'll say 2 minutes, you summed up exactly what we're going to cover over the next, 30 minutes. So that's great. At least we'll be able to laser focus this instead of me babbling on forever. But here's what I want everybody to pick up on. You went out, you did the research, so you had the experience. You then put a boatload of stuff out there that was laser focused and laser targeted towards certain areas, so niching, so to speak. It's interesting, you took real estate and you actually were able to niche it down into areas. That's something that a lot of people might not really think of because, hey, it's something that real estate is everywhere. So, you can, the things you can do to buy real estate should apply across the board, but obviously there's different factors that make it different in different areas. And you got a ton of content out there. To let everybody see how much of an expert to see the fact you were the authority and you did have the expertise and the knowledge. Sound about right?
Yeah, exactly. And because, like you say, if you look at the people that are earning the most in any industry, especially if you look at industries like coaches and that kind of thing, you'll see that there are some people that are earning a truckload, and then there are some people that aren't earning very much. And the difference isn't the knowledge, the difference is who knows how much they know and how well they've presented that. So I was going out there and I liked the shortcut to success, and that was the goal.
I love it. The difference isn't their knowledge, but the difference is who knows how much a particular person knows. That is awesome. I could babble on for the next half hour and probably ask you 1,000 more questions, but I think you hit on the key and like I said, you hit on the key point there. Was there the one other question I would have is, you talked about white papers, you talked about other things, you talked about how people just started approaching you because you started to get known because you had the information for that particular area. Was there any one thing, like any one thing you could put your finger on as the best that the best or the highest return that the highest return on your investment, or the best thing you did when it came to all the marketing and the generating visibility, credibility, and authority?
I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because, as you know, it becomes very layered. So you do one thing and then you layer on top of that maybe a podcast, you layer on top of that video. So it's tough to know. I think it has to be video. And what we did is I filmed some of our projects. So, we did a conversion to a shared house, and I just walked around with this camera going, oh, there's the kitchen, there's the bathroom. It was far from high-tech, and it was far from very interesting. But it meant that when people looked at it, they saw me in context. So they saw me in a property, in a building site, looking at what was going on. They had the chance to follow the process with me. And also, I think we're all naturally a bit scared of looking stupid. So I would go around and I'd say, we've used a press release light switch here in the communal areas because actually people are lazy, they don't turn light switches off. I'm not going to pay the electricity bill for a light bulb that's been on all day. And I just kind of generally rambled my way through these properties, and it gave people the chance to learn in a non-kind of, not non-offensive, but non-threatening way. And also, Google loves a video, right?
Yep. So
people would be Googling shared houses or where to invest in London or where to do this, and that would put my mug walking around a house. And again, it comes back to us all being a little bit lazy. They go, oh, that's good enough, that's what I need to know, I don't need to go off anywhere. How can they help me?
Yep, exactly. And I love how you said it puts you in context. So for coaches out there who believe that there's no way you can show what you're doing because you don't have a physical service, remember, it's all about showing you in context and getting people to understand who you are. And I love what you said, Kemi, about Google loving video and the fact that people will go to one of the top 3 search results and usually go no further. I think there were stats out there sometime that I think it was the top 3 ended up 87 or 95% of everybody who went on Google clicked on one of the top 3 search results to find, and eventually, and went with that person. So, that is a huge key. So what else? So going from the video, going from visibility, credibility, authority into what your content marketing efforts are right now. For those of you watching who might be a little confused to what content marketing is, the short version of content marketing is literally creating content and using it for your marketing efforts, meaning creating a blog, creating a video, creating a story, and then allowing that to be your marketing piece versus the old style advertising and everything. So from a content marketing perspective, whether it's blogs, videos, white papers, what are you doing now currently to continue to build your business?
Yeah, so there's 2 sides. There's obviously the side that we want to attract vendors that are looking to sell their properties, and we want to attract further investment, further high net worth individuals, family offices into our company to invest with us. So we are very clear in splitting it. You can't be all things to all people, but we stick true to being authentic and trying to help. So you see those sell your house quickly sites, and they're all put in this number, put in that number, do this, do that. Well, we've completely flipped it around, and we've created a how to keep your house site. So if you're in financial trouble, what can you do to help that? So we've got a list of financial resources, charities and organisations. We've got a list of things you can do. So, people don't often realise, but if you're paying your utilities by direct debit, they're probably overestimating what you're using, so you're paying more than you need to. We've got a whole heap of kind of strategies and things on this site to help people. We've got, if you're looking to sell your house, how to stage it, how to make it attractive to buyers. So we're doing everything we can to make them, be able to either keep their home if that's what they want, or sell it for the best price they can possibly get. So when 6 months later we stay in touch with them and we're like, hey, look, if you're still looking to sell, we're here, they're actually really pleased because we've helped them throughout this whole process.
Right, and you've helped them keep their house a little longer, and even if it doesn't go into a permanent keep state, you're the one that's helped them, and psychologically they believe they would have lost the house sooner or been in more pain sooner, and I think that's great. And you're so right that the majority of people are out there, other than maybe a few, are out there touting, hey, we got one guy who I won't say his tagline because it's actually his website, and I'm not into really giving that much free promotion. Yeah, you want to come on the show? Hey, maybe we talk. But no, but the whole point is he blasts this commercial, and literally the commercial is 30 seconds of sell your home, in this many, in this amount of time, and that is his complete commercial, and it's just like, yeah, that's the people's mentality, is I want to get out of my house quicker. But it's great that you've taken the opposite approach. And in short, here's what I want you as a viewer to realize. If everybody is going in one direction, it could mean one of two things. It means one of two things. Either that is the right direction, or that they've missed the boat on a different direction. And if you're trying to break into a market and you try the other direction, the worst that's going to happen is you went in the wrong direction, and you go back in with the rest of the fish and you build up your business. The best that's going to happen is all of a sudden you find that because all the fish are swimming over here, you swim over here and you get all the food. That's a nice place to be in, So it's not always nice to follow, especially the beginning of your business, following against and going in a different way than everybody else is going. At the beginning is a great time to do it because you might find that it becomes successful. It sounds like, Kemi, that's what you did. You said, hey, everybody's trying to get people to sell their houses. We're going to teach them how to save their house. And then when they do want to sell, they're going to come to us anyway because we've been helping them. Is that kind of a fair assessment?
Yeah, and as you know, in business and in life, it's not the price that ever bothers us. We don't care about the price. We care about the terms and we care about the value. So I've lost count of the number of times, someone's offered, another company have come and they've offered someone $100,000 for their house, say, and they've turned them down flat. Not interested, not going near it, won't take a penny under 150. And we've come in and said, well, actually, I'll pay 85, and they'll take it. And the reasons are we have tried everything to help them. We have got it on the terms that will help them the best way. We have been on the end of a phone to talk to them. We've sat there and got their bills out and looked at their credit card statements and looked at what it is they actually need. Because it isn't the 100K they needed. It's not you don't need to sell your house in 3 weeks. What you need to do is pay the $5,000 of arrears off before they foreclose on you. That's what you need. And if you can spend the time with your vendors, with anyone, whatever you're selling, finding out what they need, what their pain is, and solve that, you'll get it at any price you want.
Excellent. Well, Kemi, this has been an awesome day, an epically awesome day. I want you to stick around. I'm going to wrap us up here and stick around so I can talk to you off air for a quick second. Folks, you've been watching Expert Showcase with our special guest today, Kemi Egan. In this particular segment, we're talking about both getting known and getting found. And Kemi was talking about how she builds visibility, credibility, and authority, and how she continues to go out and get found through video and other content marketing efforts. If you're just tuning in at this point, you want to go back and watch the first two parts. The first part was Kemi's hero's journey, and you'll learn about how she came from a very bad situation had some struggles throughout school, had some challenges throughout life, was even homeless at one point, living in, well, I'll say that, you got to watch it to find out, kind of, in the whole homeless thing, and where she had to live, and what she had to do. You want to watch that to understand, how she got to where she is, and then watch our Experts Focus piece of Expert Showcase, which will, start you down the path of understanding how to become a real estate millionaire. Now, because it's a financial thing, I guess I should throw the typical legal disclaimer on that. Let's face it, folks, you got to work at this stuff. Whatever I've told you on the show, whatever Kemi's told you on the show, if it doesn't make you a millionaire tomorrow, don't come back and yell at us. You got to work at it. You got to work at it. Pat, what do they say here in the States? Past performance does not always equal future success. But at least it'll get you started down the right path. Kemi, before I completely wrap this up, any last words of wisdom for the folks today?
Not at all. But look, I was homeless. I had no experience, no confidence, no money, no nothing, and I did it. So wherever you are, you're probably in a better situation than I was. If it's what you want, go out there and get it, whatever it is.
Awesome. And on those words, awesome piece of advice. One thing I want to say, if you're watching this and you're a coach and you want to be a guest on Expert Showcase, head over to expertshowcase.com, click the apply button, you go through our quick and painless application process. I'll get your information. If we feel you're a good fit for the show, we'll set up a recording date and bring you on. And if you're a coach and you realize the power of video content marketing, want to either create a show for yourself or have someone create a show for you like Expert Showcase, or would like to see what this model would look like where you're the co-host of a show, head on over to VideoContent.Agency, check out what's there, get in touch with us, and let's see if we're a good fit to work together, and if we are, we'll move from there. So until we speak again, everybody, I want you to make it a great day.